Glad you could join us. Now, as Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta prepares to present next year's budget on Wednesday, market women, taxi drivers and spare parts dealers have lots of expectation. They expect to see not only a reduction in electricity tariffs, but also a reduction of prices of fuel and further reduction of import duties on spare parts. Joy News' Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam visited the Wa market and reports.
The last time the budget was read was about 8 months ago, and which was the Asempa budget. On Wednesday, the finance minister again will read another budget, and there are a lot of expectations. Today, we are at the Wa market to speak to the market women, their expectations, and what has changed since the last budget. Farida Mokhtari, for the past 1.5 years, has been selling cosmetics at the entrance of the Wa market. She took over the business from her mother following her death. For Farida, nothing has changed in her business since Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta read the Asempa budget in.
It has not had any effect on the goods we sell. Things go up drastically every day. Every day. In fact, we are really suffering. In fact, we wish that the government of Ghana will do something about the economy, because he promised to help us. He promised to help us. So at least we are still holding on to his promise that he should help us. Have you seen any change in your life? Not really. I haven't. I'm yet to experience change in my life. I'm yet to experience it. What do you want to be included in the budget? At least things to be reduced. That the VAT and all those things, it should be reduced. Especially the fuel. Because once fuel goes up, everything it's been affected. Everything is being affected. So I mean, the price of fuel should go down.
Zala Edif is a student and is used to buying products at the Wa market. Her reaction to last year's budget was mixed.
I benefit in a way, some of the things, but sometimes I didn't benefit. For example, it got to the time that the fuel increased. So I'm traveling from here to Japa or anywhere, and then it was 50 cedis. Now it's going to be 60 cedis or 55. So I benefit in a way, and then to the other part, I didn't benefit. Hajia Odoko has been selling yams for over 2 decades at the Wa market. It is through the business that she has been able to take care of her children. Since the Asempa budget was read last March, she and her colleagues have reduced the prices of their products at the market in anticipation of luring more prospective buyers to their fold. However, it did not yield the desired results.
Business is dull at the market. Our customers are not buying. They complain that there is no money. As market women, we will be happy if the government gives us loan from Maslow. It will improve our business.
What about taxi drivers? What are they saying about Wednesday's budget? We will also listen to them.
I do not see any help at all, because taxes has just remained as it was. So if fuel and everything has been increased, but tax does not reduce, and at the same time the lorry fare doesn't increase, it means definitely it's not helping with the taxi drivers. I am expecting him to increase the lorry fare, so it will also benefit with the drivers. If he doesn't increase the lorry fare, it won't in any way help us at all.
And so clearly means that you want fuel to be reduced?
Either fuel should be reduced or lorry fare should also be increased.
Basiri Moru has a spare parts store right at the entrance of the Wakajetier. He has been in the business for over 25 years. For him, the much talk about the reduction of import duty on auto pass is much ado about nothing.
No, they haven't reduced anything yet. They have said it, but now things are increasing. When you are going, they say duties is high. Because of that, we are still suffering. We are still looking about the new government and see how he will do for us. Other than that, we still never see any benefit on it. We are suffering. We want them to reduce the fuel price and then the dollar and then the duty. That is our major problem. Then we can be getting something to help our people. Other than that, we are suffering.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
Interesting views there from the residents of WA. Now, we all agree that Ghana needs money to develop, especially considering the special initiatives being championed by government, raising revenue to boost the economy and introducing social interventions has become something that is very essential. Now, during the media review of the 2017 budget, it was revealed that we failed to raise $215 million in expected revenue. Analysts are beginning to wonder how exactly the economic management team will raise these needed funds, and the minority in parliament yesterday suggested that this will be done by taxing mobile money transactions. So today on News Desk, we examine the challenge Ghana faces in raising revenue and one of the age-old solutions that has been spoken of for years, i.e. widening the tax net. With us in the studio to help us with the discussion is Social Policy Chief at UNICEF, Sarah Haig, and will also be joined on phone by financial analyst and social activist with Occupy Ghana, Sydney Casely-Hayford. Sarah, welcome.
Good morning, Daniel. Thank you.
Right. So, in the first place, when you look at what you saw or what you heard with the 2017 budget reading, the media review, would you agree that revenue raising is one of the challenges that we face?
Definitely, and I'm not surprised the government had challenges this year in raising all the revenue that they need. There are a lot of expenditures that need to be made, but there are huge challenges with getting the tax into the government pot that needs to come in. So they had ambitious targets, that's good, but those weren't met, I think, because of the challenges within the revenue collection system. And I don't know if you noticed a few days ago, Ghana Revenue Authority, they announced this new campaign. I think it's called Our Taxes, Our Future.
Exactly.
They're trying to raise visibility and awareness for paying taxes. So they're trying to communicate why people should pay taxes. And I think this is fantastic because I don't think it's been very well communicated to people, both to individuals. I hope you're paying your income tax.
Definitely.
Corporations, because a lot of people, they're not paying. They're not paying to the level that they should be. So what I understand is government is trying to make this effort to really communicate why should people pay.
There's also been some other efforts like the paperless port system, which is supposed to make our ports more efficient and help in revenue generation on that end as well. But with this issue of people understanding such interventions, because even that system was kicked against by some players in the industry, we speak of widening the tax nets. Do people really understand what that is, and do you feel that people will accept it?
Well, taxes are always sensitive, right? They're controversial. No one wants to give away more money. You need to be sure that if you're giving your money, it's going to be well spent. So you need to have clarity on what government is actually doing with it. So communicate clearly. Show the people, once they give this amount of money, what is it spent on? That it's spent on education, that it's spent on equipping health centers, that it's spent on getting money out to the poorest parts of the country. But if people don't realize where that money is going and have confidence that it's being spent on the right things and not being diverted elsewhere, then people won't have that confidence and that willingness to actually pay. So I think it's great that new initiatives are being introduced. A lot more could be done. We could be using mobile phones, we could be using electronic identification systems for really targeting new businesses that you see on the side of the road and really explaining to people when they should be paying their tax and making it easier for them. It should be a simple process.
Right, and when you talked about raising money from taxation, I'm reminded of what Winston Churchill his famous statement. If a nation tries to tax itself into prosperity, it's like a man trying to stand in a bucket and raise himself with a bucket. On that note, I'll bring in Sydney Casely-Hayford, a financial analyst. He has joined us on phone. Mr. Casely-Hayford, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We are blessed. How are you?
I'm very, very blessed too.
Right. So in the first place, we are talking here about the challenges that were faced during the media budget review in meeting revenue targets. Would you agree that taxation is the surest way to meet this target?
It depends on what form of tax. There are several taxes, and I am a big fan of consumption tax as a way of raising revenue, which means that VAT is my preferred option rather than income tax. If I had the authority and I had the option, I would say let's do something about completely eliminating income tax, and let's do a lot more about using VAT, because then individuals can plan their consumption patterns, and they can regulate and manage their own tax payments themselves, rather than having an imposition whether they like it or not. This is the way I see it now. And whether you are underprivileged, as people like to call it, whether you are privileged, you pay tax according to what you consume. And that is entirely then up to you. So for me, it's a radical thought process. It is an out-of-the-box process. But if I had the authority, that is what I would do.
Why is it necessary for us to concentrate on values like consumption tax and not income tax? What is that special difference there?
Well, the idea is that if let's look at it this way: which taxi driver do you know who pays any taxes? As far as I'm aware, all taxi drivers who collect their money, the persons who pay their taxes, who are levy taxes, are the owners of the taxi. Where the taxi driver himself earns his income and remits a certain portion of it to his owner, he does not pay any income tax or any other tax on his income, and he doesn't even declare it. However, if it was a consumption tax, then he would have to make a contribution, because wherever he goes to make purchases, it would automatically make a deduction. The whole idea is we need to leverage innovative ways of collecting taxes. All the little kiosks and shops that are on the corner should be able to set up in such a way that whenever anybody buys anything that is a taxable item, they should immediately deduct the tax, and it should be transmitted straight to the Ghana Revenue Authority. This is being done in many other countries. Rwanda does it. A few of the other East African countries have adopted that particular methodology, and they make a lot of money, so that it brings in most people who are currently not in the tax net, which is what you want to do. It's not a matter of punishing anybody to pay their taxes. It's a matter of broadening your tax net in such a way that everybody contributes towards the national coffers.
So an example of this would probably be a tax on petroleum, for instance?
Sorry, repeat that.
An example of a consumption tax, just for us to be clear, would be a tax on petroleum products, for instance.
Well, yes, we already pay taxes on petroleum products.
Yeah, I just wanted us to get that clarification, so that we have that clarity. Okay.
That is the easiest one to do it, so that anybody who buys a fuel in one way or the other contributes a tax component. So that is very, very direct. Okay. And it works.
Right. Before I bring you back in, Sarah is here with us in the studio, and I know you have a few thoughts of your own. We heard people in WA saying that they are looking for a reduction in prices, in tariffs, in fuel, but we have tax margins on these. Is consumption tax the way to go, really?
Let's go back to that woman in WA who said that she wanted to see reductions in the prices of things that she's paying for. And like she said fuel. Specifically VAT. It's a tax on everything, all products that you can buy in Ghana. So you're buying the products, I'm buying the products, but it also means that the very poorest people, those with the smallest amounts of income, they are also paying this tax. So it means it is regressive, so that the poorer people are actually paying proportionally more. Whereas someone like yourself, whether you spend a little bit amount of your salary on the tax on the price of a bottle of water or your dinner, is not so much money for you. So what
that's debatable, but
I know. But what we need to do is make sure that when tax reforms are introduced, that they don't necessarily impact those people who we saw this morning saying that prices need to come down. So I agree with Sydney that a lot of people are not paying taxes, as I said earlier. So we have new statistics that are coming out in a week or so showing that the underpayment of taxes, of income tax in particular, is huge. And we're not talking millions of cedis, we're talking billions of cedis.
Wow.
So if government already has a system to get income tax paid in, but people are not aware of it, or the system is too complicated, or they don't know why they should be paying it, let's work on that. Let's get people to pay the tax that they need to pay, and as I said, explain to people why they should pay it, what it's actually being spent on.
Now, Sydney, I'll bring you back in on this, making sure that the most vulnerable in society don't pay so much. I remember last year, when the tariffs on utilities were realigned, we saw that the lifeline band, if Sydney, you remember, had some levies removed so that if you consume between 0 and 50 units, you don't pay certain taxes. How can we introduce that in the wider market so that the most vulnerable in society, like Sarah is saying, don't end up paying when the very rich are not so burdened?
You see, a majority of the people you're referring to, the underprivileged at that level, they don't even fall within the taxable bracket. If you really compute their income and their taxable income, you will find that most of them will be tax exempt at the end of the day. So a lot of those concerns that people are raising, for me, that is neither here nor there. I'm more concerned with ensuring that the redistribution of the taxes that we collect at the national level are made available at the district level in order for us to see development. So if you really want to get very, very idealistic, what we should be doing is leaving the districts and in fact the district in particular to do their own tax collection and their own tax disbursement and use. That is what will serve the problem better, so that every district in this country must have its own tax regime and must be able to determine, particularly on a regional basis, whether or not they want to tax certain items and not tax certain items. But I'm being idealistic and I'm being futuristic. That is not what this government can do now. It's something that has to be done. It's a philosophical argument, and it's the way that we are able to ensure that our decentralization program actually backs into our tax income collection.
Okay, I'll come back.
Everybody must pay some. Everybody must pay some modicum of taxes. And anybody who says I'm too poor to pay tax, I'm sorry, you are wrong. For as long as you're making a certain amount of money, you should be able to at least contribute a certain quota.
Yeah, I'll come back to you on that point you made about something that governments can do immediately. But Sarah, that's an interesting idea, isn't it? Decentralizing the whole taxation ideas that we have.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Of course, if you're living in a district which is very, very poor, very deprived, in a very far-flung area with limited businesses and so on, it means, of course, that the revenue that you get in will also be smaller. So we need, as Sydney was saying, we need redistribution. So the way that's usually done is to bring money into the central level and then to distribute it to the areas where it needs to go, either because an area has more population or because it has bigger challenges. But in Ghana, we've had decentralization for what, 10, 20, 30 years. It's been there on the books for a long time, but the implementation is somewhat limited in practice.
We are seeing some policies that are seeking to bring more and more attention to the district level, one district, one factory, and the like. Do you think that those are helping in any way?
That could definitely be positive. From UNICEF's perspective, what we're interested in is whether those districts which are struggling the most are being supported the most. And just to let you know, next week on Thursday, we will be launching with CDD Ghana the new district league table, which shows across the entire country how districts are performing. And what we saw last year is that the district in the bottom place, in 260th place, was getting the smallest amount of government revenue.
This is the district league table you're referring to?
So the 2017 district league table will come out next Thursday morning. We'll see the new results. But unless government is making sure that the money that it has particularly goes to those districts at the bottom and supports them, they're not going to be able to improve. They're not going to be able to move up the league table. So I do think decentralization is very important. You need to get resources out to districts. They need to have more control of their own resources. But it's a question of redistribution, I think, from the center out to the districts. Support those districts that need it.
For instance, if you're going to advise the trade minister or the one district, one factory office, how do we apply this idea to a policy like that?
Great question. So Parliament has been discussing exactly that point. So they want to use or explore how to use the district league table in the formula that allocates the resources through the District Assembly Common Fund. So up until now, we've had that one pot of money, the District Assembly Common Fund, that gives resources out to the districts. Now we have the idea of $1 million, one district.
Constituency.
Yeah, one constituency, thank you. So I guess that would be a separate fund of money. So we would need the same principle for that as well, to look at allocating the resources by need. If those districts are really struggling, they are living in very difficult situations, they have very limited businesses, maybe they are very isolated, they have very difficult social indicators, they need support. They shouldn't be punished, they shouldn't be shamed for being in the bottom position. they should be supported.
So maybe they should receive even more than $1 million?
Why not?
Well, Sydney, let me bring you back in on this point. It seems like your ideas are not as radical as you thought they were. But you play a dual role in Ghana's public space as an anti-corruption campaigner as well with Occupy Ghana. And a point that was raised before you joined the conversation was that Ghanaians need to be confident about what their taxes are used for if they are going to join willingly the tax net. What do you think this government must do specifically to raise this confidence in the face of, what we know as regards to corruption?
Well, the first thing you have to do is to remove the opaqueness and the black hole. You have to make it important that people should be able to see clearly where their money is going from. Again, unfortunately, I'm going to come back to a broken record. You need to devolve this down to district level. It is easier for people to go to their district assembly and go and inquire and find out what's going on and see what the district is doing, because they will be living it. If my money is being used to improve my road network, I will see it. If my money is being used to build a school building, I will see it. If my money is being used to improve the social fabric of my district, it is very clear to me. And that is the best example of the way that people can see that their taxes are working for them. Let me go back to this issue of 1 million CDs per each district. And I think that
constituency.
We have to be very clear that if government gives this money, that is talking about $1 million to 1 million CDs or $1 million or whatever it is the currency is to every district, don't forget that the more affluent districts are the ones who do not see the impact of that 1 million. But the more deprived districts will immediately feel the impact, because that kind of money will go immediately to make a big impact on the infrastructure development. What we need, you see, is what I call productivity centers. In every district, there is a commodity or two or something that can be usefully converted into wealth creation for individuals. Every district. Some districts might be bigger than the others, but they will have a common produce. Take, for example, cocoa. Cocoa doesn't just stop in a district in the Brong-Ahafo region. It cuts across. So several districts have the opportunity, but everybody is doing the same thing, which is just simply selling their cocoa beans to the license buying agencies who give it to Cocoa Board. But if you can take that away and get some kind of industrial improvement at the district level, so everybody can actually do something for themselves and get some kind of income by themselves, and not necessarily always have to take that money and fall into a bigger pattern. They will determine for themselves what is income generating and what is bringing them the wealth that they require. So we need to get them to think for themselves and do for themselves, rather than constantly thinking for them and then instructing them on what they should do. I'll be very, very interested in this district league table, because what I would like to do with it is pretty much what you were discussing. That what is government's
what's government's allocation like to these people?
It is a way of channeling development.
Right, Sydney, thank you very much. I sincerely hope we had more time, wish we had more time to do this, but we'll have to end that. Sarah, let me just take your final thoughts, and that will be an expectation of what the finance minister will be saying tomorrow. What would you want to hear?
We would want to hear that more money is going for the priority programs. So programs to tackle open defecation, to train teachers, and to equip health centers, the big issues. And often those get a little bit lost in the budget. People aren't too sure what the big priorities are and how to find them. So we need to share that information. I want to see that information really coming out clearly in the budget, so we can see how allocations are increasing to what matters most.
Right, thank you very much, Sarah Haig, for joining us. She's a social policy chief at UNICEF. We also had Sydney Casely-Hayford, financial analyst, on phone. We'll take a quick breather.